Well, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Google Vault Data Retention for Remote and Hybrid Work Environments. My name is Patricia Matthews, and I'm a Relationship Manager here at Wursta. I'd like to introduce Patrick Della Peruta, our Director of Technology, and Chris Hopkins-Ward, Cloud Consultant, who will be leading today's discussion. This meeting is being recorded, and all registrants will receive a link to view it later this week. We ask you to stay on mute because we do have a big crowd here today. You can submit questions at any time using the Meet chat, and we will answer them at the end of the presentation. I've also have a link in the chat so you can connect with our team. This event is being hosted by Wursta. A little bit about us before we get started. Our mission is to help organizations maximize their use of the cloud. We work side by side to help people make good technology decisions and grow their businesses in ways they wouldn't have the ability to do otherwise. This helps organizations develop cultures of continuous innovation powered by real-time collaboration. And with that, I'll turn it over to Chris and Patrick.
Thank you, Patricia, for that lovely intro. Hey, Patrick, glad to be here.
Thank you, Chris, and glad to be here as well. Thank you, Patricia.
And guess what, guys?
What's that, Chris?
I am here before you, before everyone, a new man.
A new man?
Yep. These last couple of sessions that we've been doing, Patrick, have been all about like you and me, but you helping me with like a bunch of mess ups and insecurities that have been totally my fault, right?
Like forgetting your phone at Chipotle, eh?
Yep. I did that. That was our very first webinar on endpoint management.
That's right. And then you had the nightmare about your credit card and social security number, like partying out in the wild.
Yeah, that nightmare was crazy, but you helped me through that with the DLP webinar.
And then you accidentally emailed everybody in our company about the secret project DeVito.
Ooh, yeah, that's right. That was our security center webinar 2 weeks ago. I did email everybody. That was bad.
Okay, yeah, we'll
get past Patrick, first of all, thank you for helping me with all those issues. It went very smoothly after that. And secondly, I have no issue today.
You don't?
Nope. I've been keeping my head down, sleeping well, not making mistakes, and generally just staying out of everybody's way.
Well, that is great to hear, Chris.
Yeah, exactly. So this presentation should go pretty smoothly. In fact, we can just get into it. Google Vault, tell us what it is, Patrick.
I'm relieved. Let's get into it. Okay, so Google Vault. What is Google Vault? Google Vault is an e-discovery solution built into Google Workspace. Certain editions, although you can license it separately if your edition doesn't support it. What is an e-discovery solution? E-discovery solution allows you as IT administrators to conduct searches against Google Workspace accounts. Within that, you can run investigations, legal inquiries, pull records and export those records, cover services such as Gmail, Drive, meet recordings, and on-the-record chats. Creating a record, all information related to an inquiry is sorted into a container, what they call a matter, and then that matter keeps one investigation separate from another. To search, I need to create or open a matter, and then
Hi, Patrick and Chris. I'm so sorry to interrupt, but Patrick, I actually have a matter that needs to be created.
Right now, you do?
Oh.
Yeah. Being a relationship manager here at Wursta, I field any issues that our customers may be experiencing, including instances where certain people, like our lovely Chris here, emails everyone accidentally about a certain special customer's project with us.
Oh, you mean how I messed up 2 weeks ago with emailing everybody about Project DeVito?
That's correct, Chris.
Am I in trouble?
Well, we'll have to see. In order to decide that, we're going to have to build a case of evidence.
A case of evidence, Patricia?
Yes, to make sure that you didn't email anyone else any other information.
Well, Patricia, let me first vouch for Chris and say that he is a valuable member of the team. But that being said, this is warranted. It's fair to pull his records. Let me show you and everybody how we would do that using Google Vault, and then we'll export that record and give it to you so you can take it to the tribunal.
Oh, bummer. Fine. Use me as an example again.
Sorry, Chris. All right, we're going to open up Google Vault. I'm going to bring up another screen here for us to look at. This is Google Vault. This is the new interface for Google Vault, available at vault.google.com. This updated UI was just released about a month ago or so. If you've been using Google Workspace and have been using Google Vault, you may be using the old URL of ediscovery.google.com. That will be retired as of the 28th, I believe, or right around this week. So functionally, they are the same. It's just an updated UI. So what we have here is the homepage of Google Vault. It's really broken down into 3 sections, but for purposes of this, we're going to go right into creating a matter. I know this is a time-sensitive issue, Patricia, so we're going to drill down into matters. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to create a matter around this investigation. You can see the other investigations that we've built here. We're going to create a new one. Typically, we would name this with the person that's being investigated. So unfortunately,
Patrick, can you name it like Chris is usually cool, but sometimes makes mistakes or something like that?
I can do that. Chris is usually great, except this one time.
I'm human.
All right, so something like that. Will that make you a little bit? Okay.
That makes me feel better. Yep.
All right, so we're going to create that matter, and now we're going to be brought into our search parameters screen. So from here, we're going to build our search against Chris. The first option I have is to choose what service we want to scope our search against. Google Vault supports the services that you can see here: Gmail, Drive, Groups, Chat, and Google Voice. We are going to target Gmail because that is where the incident occurred. So we're going to bring up the Gmail service. We do have a couple of other options here as we build out our search query. We are going to target a specific account, Chris's account in this case. We do have the option as Vault administrators to target everybody in our domain or specific organizational units within our domain. But again, we're going to do a specific account. I'm going to start typing Chris's name here, and it does support type ahead. So I'm just going to pull him down from the list here. We have other options here like time zone. If we wanted to narrow down the search to a specific date range, we could do that. And then if we wanted to add additional search terms, we could do that as well. So for example, on the Project DeVito, I could search for things like around that. But since this is an all-encompassing search, we're going to leave that blank. I'm going to click on search here. And what that is going to do is bring back the results of your mailbox, Chris. So this is me peering into your mailbox. I can see everything that you've sent or received. But I am not the one conducting the investigation here. So what we're actually going to do is export this data. So we're going to click on export. Again, I have to name this. So I'm just going to put your name here. And what the export will do is create a bunch of different files for me to hand off to Patricia so that she can take them to the tribunal and defend you. And I will help where I can. We do have a couple of options when we're exporting. The first one is whether or not to include confidential emails that you've sent from Gmail. So Gmail about a year ago introduced a new setting called confidential mode, and that allows you to add some additional security on outbound messages. So we're going to leave those. We're going to leave that toggled on. I do have the option to specify a data region. So if your organization is bound to regulations like GDPR or something like that, you could specify where your export is going to be saved. We don't have those regulations here at Wursta, so I'll leave it as no preference. And then finally, we have 2 options for the export. I can export it as an mbox file, which is a open source email format. You can use applications like Thunderbird to open up those files. Or the more common PST file. PST files are associated with Outlook. You can use Outlook to open up any of the exports in PST format, or you can find there's a couple of PST or free PST viewers available on the internet. So we're going to export this as a PST file. Okay, so that export is started, and if I navigate over to exports, we can see the case against you, Chris, is now being built. We're at 0%, but over the course of a couple of minutes, this will build up. And of course, it's dependent on how much mail we're actually querying. So this may take a minute or 2 to finish. So while we're waiting for that, let me go back into the home page of Google Vault, and I'll show you a couple of other things within it. So I can leave my search results. So the first thing and biggest thing for organizations that are adopting Google Vault for the first time is the retention rules as they pertain to Google Vault. And when setting retention rules here, they can have a impact on Gmail as well, so what your users see in their inbox. So by default, your retention rules across the services that are supported in Google Vault are set to indefinite. You can specify other retention rules, or you can specify the default retention rule that is in line with your company's policy. So for example, we work with organizations that have anywhere from 12-month retention periods to 7 or 9 years of retention. So whatever your organization dictates, and that often comes from the legal departments and HR departments, you can set those default retention rules here. On top of those default retention rules, you can have custom rules. So if you have a group of users that are corralled in a OU within your Google Workspace tenant, you can have separate rules for that set of users. So if you have a group of high profile users, VIPs, C-level maybe, and you want to have longer or shorter retention rules for them, you can have rules that work along with your default retention rules. And then finally, there's some additional settings that you can set around Google Meet. So Meet recordings, Google Sites, etc. There's some additional settings here as well. But let's go back and check on your export, or our export here. So I'm going to go back into Matters. And I'm going to click into the matter that we created. And we're going to go navigate back to exports. And we can see the status is now complete. We have the green check mark. Google will hold these exports for 15 days. It shows me the total amount of messages that were there, the total size of the PST file, and when that was started. So I'm going to click on download, and that presents me the option to download the associated files with our matter. Google will first zip up the PST file or multiple PST files if the mailbox was rather large. So I think anything over 2 gigabytes is broken up into multiple PST files. It also will download any of the metadata or the checksum files that are required for me to give to Patricia to say that after I've exported this data, I haven't touched it, right? So that so chain of custody and handing that off from one person to another. These checksum files will allow to verify that I haven't altered these files. New to this collection is this CSV file here, which for anybody that reads the Google Workspace update blog, there was an update blog yesterday about this. Now included in these exports is a CSV file of all the results from our search, right? So that screen that I showed you, Chris, that had all of your email, that same format now comes in as a CSV file. It allows those who are investigating you to browse through your email a little bit quicker. So I'm going to download each of these. These are going to download to my local computer. If you're using something like Google Drive for desktop, you can have these downloaded straight to Google Drive. But Patricia, what I'll do from here is I will zip these up and I will send them to you, and then you can take them to the tribunal, and hopefully we can save Chris's behind.
Yeah, thanks for that, Patrick. Patricia, be good to those files. I'll send you some other good files of the stuff that I've actually done that's really good for the company as well. So it'll be a nice package that you'll get.
Excellent.
You're muted, but yes. You're muted, Patricia, but thank you.
Good information, Patrick. It's everything that we need. I'm confident everything will be resolved.
Me too. Patrick, is this the way you would help a customer who has issues with Google Vault?
Yeah, it really depends on where the organization is with their adoption of Google Vault. So for organizations thinking about moving to Workspace, certainly as part of our engagement for your migration, we will assist in setting up your e-discovery needs using Google Vault. So during our discovery and planning phases, we will work with your operations, legal, and HR teams to define what those retention policies should be. We will then work to implement those as part of that migration. For customers already using Google, are already on Workspace, maybe you have a licensed version of Google Vault, but you're not using it yet. Or if you're looking for an upgrade path to Google Vault, we can certainly help in those situations. But those packages include training for administrators. So for a lot of IT administrators, getting into the legal side of things is not something they've been experienced with. So training on how to set up your retention rules, how to make your retention rules make sure that they're in line with what your users expect, right? So there is an impact to what we do in Google Vault and what is visible to the user on Gmail. One of the great things about Google Vault is we can delegate access to our legal team to use Google Vault directly. So for me personally, I've been in positions where I've had to serve as that IT administrator and legal representation from an IT perspective. With Google Vault, I can create a role for our legal counsel to come into Google Vault and conduct their own searches. So we provide training around that as well. On top of that, for smaller organizations that may not have the IT staff on hand to conduct those searches or set up Google Vault, Wursta can come in and work with the business to set up the retention rules, and then also run those legal searches as needed. So a couple different packages, a couple different offerings that we serve around Google Vault, and happy to work with anybody on those.
That's great information, Patrick. And have we helped customers in the past with Google Vault? Anything specific you can think of?
Yeah, actually, on that last point, just recently, almost to a T. So a small organization came in to us. They've been on Google Workspace for a while, had not touched Google Vault. So they really didn't set up any retention rules or had ever used it. So they didn't have anybody sort of knowledgeable to actually conduct those searches. They had been presented as an organization with a legal matter. They didn't know where to go, so they came to us. We sat with them, and we not only provided them the training that they needed on using Google Vault, we trained their legal personnel, but we also assisted with running those searches. So they had a series of user accounts that they had to pull data for, and a couple of search terms that we had to pull data for. So using Google Vault, we were able to go in, conduct those searches. We were able to pull the exports that they needed. And then using Google Drive, we set up a connection with the outside counsel. We're able to deliver those files, and the case is still proceeding right now. But from the customer's perspective, we handed off everything that they needed.
Gotcha. Well, great. Well, then to recap, unfortunately, because it was all my fault again, sorry guys, the next presentation will be not my fault. Again, I tried to make it not my fault this time, but still, past comes back to haunt you. Anyway, we enabled Vault in Google Workspace. We talked about retention rules. We created a matter. That was my fault. We talked about the legal and research benefits of having Google Vault and enabling it in your company. And we talked about Wursta's Vault expertise and what we can offer a company who needs Vault help.
That's
So
right.
with that, we can push it off to Patricia to end things off. And then we have an open forum for question and answer at the end.
That's right.
You're muted, Patricia. Hold on.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Chris. Before we get into questions, here is our upcoming event schedule. We've got a lot planned over the next few weeks, so be sure to sign up or take a look on our website at wursta.com/about/resources. Google is hosting 3 upcoming events about cloud, and we have one final event for this series about Google Voice. There's a link in the chat for more information. We would also love your feedback. There's a link in the chat, and you'll receive a follow-up email with a short survey to tell us what you thought of today's discussion. We're also, finally, offering packages specific to Google Vault for all registrants. Your Wursta rep will be reaching out to schedule a quick call to go over the details if you're interested.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody, for attending this presentation. And we can totally open the forum for question and answer now. It looks like someone already posted a question in the Q&A section, which is also a cool way to post questions.
Yeah, I love to see people taking advantage of the new features within Google Meet. So James, nice to hear from you, James. There's retention work on the Google Workspace Enterprise Plus archived user accounts once they're moved over. Great question. We didn't touch on licensing much during this little skit presentation. So a couple of things on licensing around Google Vault. So Enterprise Plus, yes, everybody licensed for Enterprise Plus is covered under Google Vault. Now, if one of those employees were to leave the organization, you presumably want to retain or recoup that license, right? So that you can apply it for another new hire. By taking a license away from a user, you're taking them out of Google Vault. So what Google does to account for that is offer what they call archived user license. So when you have a user leave the company that you need to retain Vault data for, and sometimes that's dictated by regulation, sometimes that's dictated by company policy, you would move that user from Enterprise Plus licensed to an archived user license. And that user, once they have that archived user license, would still be searchable and discoverable in Google Vault.
Good question, James.
Yes, absolutely.
Anybody else with any other questions that we can answer? Or comments, or good vibes? Either way.
Tell everybody how much you love Chris and how great of a job he does.
Yeah, my tribunal is next week, apparently.
Sorry, my screen is flickering here. I'm trying to get my other demo screen back up. As we wait for some questions, maybe there's no questions, and that's totally fine. Just a couple other things around Google Vault in general. So back on that home screen, I went through retention and matters. The other piece here is the reporting piece, and this is really administrator reporting, right? So if you have multiple administrators in here, or if you've delegated access to Google Vault to say your legal personnel, you are able as administrators to come in here and run audits on what activity has been happening in Google Vault, right? So as an IT administrator, there's got to be a checks and balance, right? So even though I have access to Google Vault, I should not be coming in here to check my CEO's email, right? So it would be easy for me to do that, but because it's auditable, I know not to do that. I wouldn't do that anyway because I'm an ethical guy, but there is an audit log of every search and every action that's taken in Google Vault. So just wanted to call that out. And then Chris, I think it was on the last slide that you mentioned the financial gain that you have from a tool like Google Vault. I was a Microsoft admin in a previous life, long time ago. I don't like to admit that many times, but I often was presented with this very thing, right? Well, we had to present a legal search or some sort of evidence for a legal matter. And it was often we had to download an entire PST of a user that was 40 or 50 gigs big, right? So it's a lot of data to sift through, and to hand that off to external legal counsel to go through is going to cost you, $250, $300, $400 an hour to run through that. So legal bills can really rack up quickly. One of the things I've loved about Google Vault, and before that, Postini and things like that, is it really allows administrators and your on-staff legal counsel to narrow down the data that they're looking for. And again, it helps sort of save that external cost. So I just wanted to touch on that real quick since we did bring it up as a bullet. There could be, depending on the number of legal matters that you're dealing with in your organization, for a lot of organizations, it's a lot. It could save you a lot of money if you're not currently leveraging Google Vault.
Got it. Great info, Patrick. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely.
Any other questions that we can answer? All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for your time today. We really appreciate you joining all of these webinars. There will be one more in the coming 2 weeks, and feel free to click on all the links that Emily sent into the chats to give us feedback, to check out our upcoming events, and so on and so forth. So thank you again for your time today.